This is easily one of the most hated mothers in Nigeria right now, Rita Daniels. But before we start, let's get one thing clear. This isn't a thumbs up video for her. This is a deep dive into the psychology behind her actions, her choices, her behavior, and the emotions that might have driven them. Because remember, here on Behind Closed Doors, we don't just tell stories, we try to understand them. We explore the things people do when they feel cornered, the decisions they make in moments of desperation, and what influences a person's choice when they believe they have no other options. We don't just talk celebrities, we also talk about the personal stories of people. And that's what makes this story different, this Rita Daniels story. Because behind the glamour, the fame, and the criticism lies the story of a single mother. A woman who was forced to watch her teenage daughter make a decision that the entire country judged her for. A decision that would change both their lives forever. This video is a psychoanalysis of Rita Daniels, a woman many have labeled greedy, manipulative, and heartless. But today we are peeling back the layers to understand what might have been happening behind closed doors. Rita Daniels is a name that triggers mixed emotions across Nigeria. To some, she's the woman who traded her daughter's innocence for fame and wealth. To others, she's simply a mother who did her best in a country that doesn't make life easy for single women. But before all the noise, before the judgment and the endless headlines, Rita Daniels was an actress, a movie producer, and a politician. She rose from humble beginnings in Delta State and gradually became one of the notable faces in Nollywood's Asaba circle. Long before her daughter became a global name, Rita had already carved a small space for herself in the entertainment industry, acting in low-budget movies, mentoring upcoming talents, and building connections that would later shape her family's path. Life wasn't easy for her. She was a single mother of 6, raising her children almost single-handedly after her marriage crashed. Like many women in her shoes, she juggled roles: motherhood, hustle, manager, provider. She was the woman who went out early in the morning and came back late at night, and somehow still found a way to smile for her kids. So when people see the confident, outspoken Rita Daniels of today, they often forget the years of silent struggle behind that bold face. A woman who had fought poverty long enough to know she never wanted her children to taste it again. And that's where the story begins, because beneath every decision, there's always a history. And beneath Rita's calm acceptance of her daughter's controversial marriage lies a woman who had already been through the kind of life she didn't want her children to repeat. And yet, despite all she's endured, the world refused to see her as a mother who had lived through pain. Instead, she became the villain in her own daughter's story. When news broke that 17-year-old Regina Daniels was getting married to billionaire politician Ned Nwoko, public outrage exploded like wildfire. Nigerians didn't just react, they judged. Overnight, Rita Daniels became the symbol of everything wrong with modern motherhood. Social media platforms were flooded with accusations. She sold her daughter for money, a bad mother raising a greedy child. These were the recurring words. But the outrage missed one crucial point. The marriage might have been Regina's decision, not her mother's. Because according to multiple interviews, Rita Daniels had actually tried to stop her daughter. She said it herself. She was shocked when Regina brought up the idea. She pleaded, argued, even threatened, but her daughter was determined. And Regina herself confirmed this years later in one of her recent interviews. She said it clearly, "It was my choice. My mother did not force me." Those words changed everything, or at least they should have. Because in truth, what we witnessed wasn't a mother selling her daughter. It was a mother losing control. A mother standing at the edge of an impossible situation, torn between protecting her daughter and respecting her will. I know at this point you might already be thinking, "Oh, please don't bring up this talk. Oh, this is bullshit." But wait. Imagine this. You've spent years struggling to raise 6 children on your own. You've fought poverty, rejection, and failure. You've built yourself from the ground up, yet the weight of responsibility never left your shoulders. Then one day, your teenage daughter, the most famous one, tells you she wants to marry a man over 40 years older than her, a man with influence, money and power. You try to stop her, you argue, you cry, but she insists, and then slowly you begin to see her slipping away. The world is watching, waiting for your next move. Do you disown her and lose her forever? Or do you stay close, hoping you can still protect her from within? That was the cross Rita Daniels had to carry. And perhaps that's where the misunderstanding began. You might not understand the story by listening to this point, but you will understand slowly as we build up to everything that happened that resulted in what we are seeing today. Because while the public saw a woman celebrating her daughter's marriage, what they didn't see was the mother behind the camera, struggling to balance shame, love, and survival. If you even remember how this whole story began, it supposedly started from what seemed like a harmless visit. Rita Daniels and her daughter, Regina, reportedly visited Ned Nwoko's house in Ogwashuku, Delta State, a mansion so grand that it's often described as a tourist attraction. At that moment, it was just a visit. A mother and daughter touring a place that held the kind of wealth and power most people only dreamed of. But looking back now, that visit feels like the moment everything changed. Because that was where exposure met influence, where admiration began to blur into attachment. And it's important, not just because of how they met, but because it marked the beginning of something deeper. The slow conditioning of a young girl who would soon believe she was in love. At first, for Rita Daniels, it was a firm and resounding no. When Regina brought up the idea of marrying Ned Nwoko, Rita Daniels reportedly stood her ground. The mother in her revolted. The instinct to protect her daughter roared louder than anything else. By all accounts, she said no, and she meant it. But then came the chaos. According to Regina's own words, which I believe, because I think if at any point it's her mother that sold her off or it's her mother that forced her, there would have already been a gradual resentment which we would all have been seeing now playing out with all this chaos going on. Regina would have started resenting her mother for putting her in this situation, but she doesn't. So this is why I believe that probably mostly she made the decision herself. So according to Regina's own words, she started acting up. She would drive out of the house, threaten to harm herself, and behaved recklessly. At that point, it was no longer a simple disagreement. It had become a dangerous game between a mother's love and a daughter's obsession. Her brothers tried to intervene. The entire family reportedly stood against it. Yet in the middle of it all, Rita found herself trapped, torn between doing what was right and doing what might save her child from spiraling out of control. And that's where the real emotional shift began. Maybe it didn't happen overnight. Maybe it happened in quiet moments. At night when the lights were off and the house was silent. When the weight of raising 6 children alone pressed against her chest like a stone. She must have thought of all the years of struggle, the unpaid bills, the school fees that never waited, the endless prayers that seemed unanswered. Nollywood didn't pay much back then. It still doesn't even now. And for years, Rita was the only hand steering the family ship through stormy waters. 6 children, no steady support, an ex-husband who, according to reports, had fallen on hard times. Every kobo mattered, every gig, every role, every hustle. The exhaustion must have been bone deep. So maybe, just maybe, when she looked at her daughter, the one child already earning, already bringing something home, she started to see a silver lining. Not because she wanted to sell her child's future, but because she was tired. Tired of hunger, tired of scraping through life, tired of waking up every morning wondering where the next meal would come from. People talk about greed, but they rarely talk about exhaustion. They rarely talk about hope fatigue, that point where a person's faith begins to crack, and the mind starts whispering, maybe this is God's way of helping me. Then came the reports that Ned Nwoko gave her $30,000. We can only imagine what that felt like to a woman who had spent her life juggling bills and debts. Was it wrong to accept it? Yes. But was it also human to feel relief? Absolutely. It wasn't just money. It was momentary escape. It was the kind of help that made you question your own morals. Because poverty doesn't just empty pockets. It breaks the spirit. It is only those who haven't experienced it that will say otherwise. And maybe that's when a mother's vehement no began to turn into maybe. This is where we stop judging and start reflecting. Think of your own mother. Think of the times she swallowed her pride, accepted humiliation, or endured things that broke her spirit just to put food on the table. There are mothers who have worked themselves to the bone in markets, who have endured insults from landlords, who have borrowed money from people that mocked them. There are even mothers who have done the unthinkable, selling their bodies, sleeping with men at night just to feed their children in the morning. Now ask yourself, were they greedy or were they desperate? When you begin to see it from that lens, Rita Daniels maybe starts to make a painful kind of sense. Not because it was right, but because it was completely human. And sometimes being human comes with mistakes dressed as survival. Remember, we are not trying to say what she did was right or she made the best of decisions she could have made at that point. We are trying to look at what might have influenced the decisions she made, aside the normal chant we have been chanting, it's all greed. Because it's easy to judge until you've lived years of unpaid bills, failed promises, and hungry nights. When help finally comes, even in a form you don't like, part of you wants to believe it's a blessing in disguise. Now this is where we'll look at the contact, the grooming, and the conditioning. Before we speak about conditioning, we must ask the most basic questions. We are done talking about Rita Daniels right here. We have looked at, all the things that might have played up, the desperation, the emotional pain, the need to survive that might have influenced her saying, maybe it's not such a bad idea. Now let's look at Regina Daniels herself. Let's look at how and what. In her recent interview, she came out to say she was in love. I found that absolutely ridiculous. That a 17-year-old girl at the time, even though they claimed she was 18, because I know for whatever reason, they didn't want to make it look like, she was underage at the time. So we're going to work with her actual age because she was born in 2001, October, and she's currently 24. So how did a 17-year-old girl fall in love with a man over 40 years older than her? This is what we're going to be looking at now. So before we speak about that conditioning, we must ask the most basic question and the most important of all. How did this even start? They met, yes, we are told, on a visit to his house in Ogwashuku, a place described like a tourist site, a palace of sorts. We understand that. Rita and Regina visited, fine. But what happened after that visit? Think about it. A 17-year-old girl, a man old enough to be her grandfather, who reached for whose number? How did contact continue beyond that casual visit? The mother says she didn't know. Regina has come out to say yes again, she didn't know. Ned has not debunked how they met. So apparently we believe this is how they met, and this is actually true. These people are saying the truth. So who made the first move? We are not saying any single fact here. We are just trying to understand. We are not saying this is what happened. We weren't there. We are trying to analyze, to understand how all this even came to be in the first place. So this is not gospel. This is not the truth. This is just an analysis. We are asking questions that matter. It's hard, almost impossible to imagine a teenage girl hunting for the contact of a 60-plus-year-old man. The simple, uncomfortable possibility is this. He made the first move. He found a way to contact her, directly, through a well-placed intermediary, or in the guise of checking up as a concerned elder. Maybe he asked for her number politely. Maybe someone in the house passed it along. We don't know. But the point is, the contact chain is the first place where power can quietly enter a relationship. And from here, look at the timeline. By some account, within weeks, the conversation had turned to marriage. Weeks, not years. What could happen in a couple of weeks that turns a teenager's mind to make her say, I was in love? This, I think, is the work of emotional grooming. Imagine the pattern. Small calls, a voice that checks, how are you, more often than anyone else. Attention, constant, flattering, insistent. Gifts that arrive unannounced. private praise. You are so beautiful. You are innocent. You must be protected. A man who tells a teen she's special in ways no one else has. These are classic moves: attention, praise, gifts, presence. To a young, vulnerable mind, they do the quiet work of remapping meaning. We call it love bombing when it's intentional. Overwhelm the person with attention, praise, and reward until their emotional threshold shifts. The brain responds, dopamine spikes with every validation, every message, every small gift. The reward system learns this person is equals to feeling good. After a few repetitions, comfort and admiration begins to feel indistinguishable from affection. That is simple neuroscience. These are not idle curiosities. They point to some sort of grooming pattern. The man discovers vulnerability and treats it like criterion, then uses praise and control to shape it. We are not accusing without proof. We are not saying this is fact. We are simply mapping the psychology that would make such a pattern possible. Then add another layer: family conditioning. Regina was not some sheltered teenager. By her own account, she was already providing, taking up roles, bringing money into the home, carrying adult responsibilities at such a young age. Her childhood had been partly given away to survival. When your brain is taught early that you must provide, when validation equals utility, a man who offers both care and rescue begins to look different. He's not only a lover in the narrow sense of the word, he becomes a potential savior for the family. Loving him starts to feel like purpose. Put all this together and you get a toxic arithmetic. A young mind that has been trained to equate attention with value, plus an older man who could met out attention, money, and status quickly, equals to a high probability that the teen's reward system will rewire. The result? Comfort and validation feels like love. Rescue feels like destiny. We must be careful here. This analysis isn't a legal accusation. It's not a fact. It's an attempt to reconstruct plausible psychological mechanics. We say might have, could, and possibly because we do not have the private messages and the exact sequence, but the pattern fits known dynamics of rapid attachment or the power asymmetry. Father figure gestures, love bombing, material rescue, and the relabeling of relief as romance. So when people ask, did Regina fall in love or was she conditioned? The honest answer is, it's probably both. The gestures were real, the relief was palpable, and the brain's reward circuit don't care about morality. They only learn what feels good and repeat it. And when your family is hungry, when unpaid bills press like a stone, the threshold for what feels good lowers considerably. That is why the early contact matters so much, because power entered first as access and attention, then as material help, and finally as narrative. This is love, this is who will save us. That sequence explains how a teenager could move in a few intense weeks from curious visitor to a fiancé, at least in perception. With that in mind, we have looked at it all: Rita's exhaustion, her history, her quiet surrender, the luxury and attention that met a teenage girl's vulnerability, the conditioning that blurred comfort into connection, rescue into romance. We have tried to see not just what happened, but how it might have happened, and what it says about the lives we often overlook behind the headlines. Because at the heart of it all, this is not a story about fame or scandal. It's a story about human need. The need for safety, the need for relief, the need for something that feels like love after too much struggle. Maybe for Rita, it was a moment of silence after years of noise. Maybe for Regina, it was the first time she had felt seen, adored, and cared for beyond her family's struggles. None of that makes it right, but it makes it real and very human. Understanding isn't the same as agreeing. It's standing at the edge of someone's choices and admitting that if we had lived their life, faced their emptiness, or carried their fears, we might have broken at the same point. We might have chosen survival over pride, relief over resistance. So no, this isn't about justification. It's about seeing beyond the gossip, seeing beyond the scandal, seeing how the system, the struggle, and the silence can shape people into doing what they once swore they would never do. And maybe, just maybe, learning to ask softer questions before we cast the next stone is the way to go. If you watched this video to this point, please do consider subscribing. We're trying to get this channel to at least 1K subscribers. So every subscription counts, every likes count, every comment counts. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. Do you agree with me, or do you think I'm yapping balderdash? A lot of people are going to come for me in the comment section, probably mostly, but then I try to psychoanalyze situations. I try to look beyond the gossip. And this is why we have this video right here. So do consider subscribing, liking, and leaving a comment.